Okay, folks, I want to call the Hopkinton Town Council meeting of February 4th, 2019 to order with a moment of silent meditation and salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First up is the introduction of the Animal Control Officer, Samantha Bowen. I'll turn it over to Bill McGarry.
Thank you. It's a privilege and a pleasure for me tonight to introduce our newest town employee, our full-time Animal Control Officer. Her name is Samantha Bowen. She lives in Richmond, and we conducted a comprehensive recruitment and selection process. And we felt that she was the most experienced, the best candidate, and the best fit for the position. So actually today was her first day on the job, and the good news is she's still here. Yeah, she is a graduate of Charahoe High School, and she also has an associate's in science degree. We stole her from Richmond. She was a part-time animal control officer for the town of Richmond for about 15 months and did some volunteer work for them too. So their loss is our gain. So, would you like to say a few words, Samantha?
I would. I want to thank everybody for the opportunity. I'm so excited to start this position.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Hopkinton. Thank you. I'm excited. It's going to be huge.
Good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. Next up is the swearing in of HPD Patrolman Matt Hindle, and I'll turn it over to Chief Collins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to introduce Matt Kendall. He's a most recent police officer that graduated from the Rhode Island Municipal Academy. And just to explain a little bit about him, is he graduated from Westerly High School in 2009 to 2013. He was in the U.S. Army. He was honorably discharged in 2013. He attained the rank of sergeant. He was a honor guard, prestigious position where he performed over 400 honor guard burials at Arlington, Virginia Cemetery. He had a lot of accommodations from there, and he went on from there. He went on to New Hampshire Corrections, where he was a guard there for 2 years, from 2013 to 2015. 2015, ironically, he went to Hopkinton, New Hampshire Police Department, which was a very similar type rural area as we have here. I spoke to the chief there at length. He raved about him. He knew when he went there that he always wanted to get back to his roots here in southern Rhode Island, and we were lucky to get him. He was the best candidate that we had here. He's joined here today by his wife Shannon and his 2 young daughters, Elvira and Madison, and his grandmother, Mrs. Johnson. And so without further ado, I'll bring him up here and have Lisa swear him in.
Thank you for your service. I'm going to go over here so I don't write down the show. Raise your hand, please. Do Matt C. Hindley, Stocks Hindley, solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution and obey the laws of the United States of America and the state of Rhode Island, that you will in all respects observe the provisions of the charter and ordinances of the town of Hopkinton, and you will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of a Hopkinton police officer.
Thank you, sir.
License and
registration. I just want to say it's an honor and a privilege to serve this community, and I plan on being here for a very long time, so thank you.
Thanks, man. Welcome to Hopkinton.
That's what I want to hear. Okay, the next, I have accommodations, two accommodations, the same combinations. One is for Patrolman Wewell, David Wewell, and Sergeant Keith Lambricks. Unfortunately, Sergeant Lambricks is in a walk-in right now. He pulled a muscle in his back, so he was not able to attend. But I'd like to read the certification of commendation. This certificate is to commend Patrolman David Wewell for outstanding work on the 12th day of October at noon. Sergeant Lambricks was on traffic detail on Ashway Road when a vehicle passed his location in northerly direction. Sergeant Lambricks detected a strong odor of marijuana emanating from the Mercedes SUV. 5 minutes later, the same vehicle returned south on Ashway Road. Again, he could smell the odor of marijuana. He had called for Patrolman Wewell to come into the area. Sergeant Lambricks could see in the rear portion of the SUV and observed in plain view a clear storage container with a large amount of greenish-brown substance recognizable as marijuana. Sergeant Lambricks radioed Patrolman Wewell to determine if he was in a position to stop the vehicle. Patrolman Wewell set up a traffic post at the Ashway RV Resort. He observed the suspect vehicle proceed over the painted fog lines and made a traffic stop at BDA in Westerly. Patrolman Wewell observed 12 large, clear plastic containers throughout the vehicle. He was able to recognize the contents within those containers as marijuana. Captain Carey, Detective Ahern, and Westerly police responded. The weight of the marijuana seized was 41 pounds of marijuana. The suspect was returned and charged with possession of marijuana in excess of 5 kilograms and manufacturing marijuana. The actions of Sergeant Lambricks and Patrolman Wewell were proactive, diligent, and indicative of the professionalism long associated with the Hopkinton Police Department. Congratulations to them. Next commendation I'd like to present is to Brian Dufall, but I think I really should be giving Allison a commendation. She's got four young children in tow tonight, including about a 2-week-old child, so she probably should get part of this commendation as well. This certificate is to commend Patrolman Brian Dufall for outstanding work on the 27th of April 2018, when at 6:35, members of the Hopkinton Police, assisted by Rhode Island State Police and Richmond Police, arrested 2 adults and 3 juveniles for first-degree armed robbery, conspiracy to commit first-degree armed robbery, possession of a firearm while committing a crime of violence, and possession of crack cocaine. At approximately 6:25, Hopkinton Police received a 911 call from Spicer's Marketplace advising that 2 suspects had entered the convenience store and 1 suspect pointed a black handgun at the clerk and demanded money. They fled the store and entered a motor vehicle with other occupants. Approximately 10 minutes later, Patrolman Brian Dufall observed the suspect vehicle on Woodville Road, turned around and conducted a felony car stop on Wheeler Road. The vehicle stopped, but the 5 occupants would not heed Patrolman Dufall's commands. The vehicle then fled further into the Fenner Hill Golf Course facility, pursued by the police. 1 suspect was able to hide a fully loaded 9mm handgun used in the armed robbery under a barn. At this point, additional Hopkinton police officers and other agencies arrived, where the vehicle was boxed in and all 5 men from Connecticut were taken into custody. Also seized within the vehicle were several baggies of suspect crack cocaine. The investigation revealed that the 5 suspects arrested had committed an armed robbery earlier that day at 350 in West Warwick at the Rhode Island Nail Salon, where the same handgun was used and cash was taken. It was determined that through the investigation that the occupants were looking for a store to commit another armed robbery. So they're clearly on a crime path here that wasn't going to stop until the police got involved. The actions of Patrolman Dufault were proactive, diligent, and indicative of the professionalism of the law associated with the Hopkinton Police Department. Congratulations. That concludes my presentation. Great job by all the officers. One thing I would like to mention on the last one with the armed robbery, that I did give letters of recognition to Detective Ahern, Sergeant Percival, and Patrolman Sangster for their follow-up work, which was extensive. So,
Thanks.
good job by all.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, next up is a petition for comprehensive plan and zoning amendments. Open a hearing to consider a petition for a comprehensive plan, future land use map amendment, and a zoning ordinance amendment filed by Joyce K. Luzzi, Joyce K. Luzzi Living Trust, 145 Secana Boulevard, Narragansett, Rhode Island, 02882, for property located at 165A Tomaquag Road, identified as Plat 5, Lot 6, a manufacturing zone, to rezone the parcel from manufacturing to R1. The comprehensive plan future land use map amendment is filed in accordance with Chapter 2, Article 2, Division 5, Sections 2 through 116A, and a zoning ordinance amendment is filed in accordance with Appendix A, zoning, Section 16 of the zoning ordinance of the town of Hopkinton as amended. The applicant is requesting a comprehensive plan future land use map amendment from manufacturing to medium density residential, and a zoning ordinance amendment to amend the zoning map to allow for a rezone of the subject property from manufacturing to R1. Attorney Kelly Picasso.
Good evening, Kelly Picasso for the applicant. I'm hoping I can make a rules record presentation here as far as a rezone petition, given that we're looking to rezone a property which is a, well, I guess you would call it a relatively small parcel, 2-point-something acres, which is zoned manufacturing special. It's literally an island of manufacturing in a sea of residential. The owner of the property, Joyce Luzzi, seeks to sell it. And given the current zoning classification, it would be extremely difficult to do. So she's looking to rezone the property back to what it was before the zone change was granted, I believe, back in the 1980s. And my partner, Vin Nacarado, I believe, got the rezone to manufacturing special. We're just looking to reverse that, put it back to R1, which is what it was before. And I know the last time we were here, Councilor Thompson mentioned that she may have some objections to having it rezoned to R1.
I don't.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't realize it was so loud. I don't anymore.
Okay, all
No
right.
problem.
Then that's basically it. We do have a planning board meeting on Wednesday because Swifty here didn't file a petition for a change to the future land use map simultaneously with the petition for the rezone. So it's a little bit jumbled up here. But in any event, the planning board gave a very positive recommendation on the rezone. So I'm just going to rest on that.
Thanks, Kelly.
I would say that that is the lab that Nathan Kay had many years ago, I believe.
It is.
Yeah, I hadn't been in that building in a long time. I was thinking of that today. Nathan was one of the presidents of the Hopkins Historical Association many years ago. And it's kind of a unique situation because usually you don't hear about something reverting from manufacturing to R1, and it's a positive step in that area. And I'd just like to say that the correct pronunciation is usually Luzzy. That I believe that's how most people with that last name in the area pronounce it, Luzzy.
Oh, that's what, I thought that's what I said.
You did?
No, I'm just saying Frank, I think, made a mistake. And Frank's not a native, so I'm being
I'm up and
picky.
I'm Italian.
But I'm being a little picky right now, but I wish them well, and I'm in favor of this change.
Barbara?
I have a question. On the petition for comprehensive plan and zoning amendments, I actually have two questions. One is you've asked for manufacturing to medium density residential. Is there a particular reason why that's put there? Because we don't have that?
It should say R1.
It does say R1 later, but it says from manufacturing to medium density residential, and the zoning ordinance amendment, which would go to R1. So I don't understand that. Perhaps that was just supposed to be residential.
It's not, probably just residential. It
Jim,
sounds
you want
like-
to comment on that
sounds like a
verbiage?
typo.
Yeah, I don't know.
I didn't understand it.
That's a classification that you'll find on the future land use map.
That's just one I haven't seen, so.
It's,
So that is still R1,
R1 is medium density residential,
okay.
RFR80 is low density.
And then I have another question, which you can be here for too. There's also waivers sought from the checklist. Is that something that we need to do, or can the planning board do that?
That applies to zoning.
I did that. That's pretty much something I did right off the top of my head, only because we're moving from, manufacturing to residential. I didn't see any need for
Traffic study.
for the traffic study.
I
things of
think,
that
I
nature.
agree that I would think that we need a traffic study and the water supply is obviously sufficient. I just don't know about soil erosion, stormwater, and the biologist with no freshwater wetlands, if indeed you are planning on building there or selling it so that someone can build, because I'm sure they would need to make those determinations, and I don't feel very comfortable about making those.
Yeah, they would
That's
have to.
something the planning board would do, I feel more comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, if hypothetically somebody went to subdivide the property, they would have to prove all of those things in the preliminary and final plan stages.
So is that something the council has to do, or can we give it some time, or?
Oh, you can, there's no reason why you can't grant those waivers, or just grant the petition and not even worry about the waivers. They're rules which are made by the council can waive its own rules, so.
So those could be waived and we can just do the petition?
Yes, I just threw that in there. It's kind of reverting back to what I typically do on a zone.
You know, I understand, I mean, why would you need a traffic study or to prove you have water when you've already got a well, but I just wasn't sure about the other two, because if you sell it, people would need to do that.
Absolutely.
So that was my only concern.
Okay, Sharon, anything for Kelly for us on this? Kelly, just as I mentioned to you outside of the hearing, the only question I had was the fact that it's going from manufacturing to R1. Typically, R1 is a much smaller lot than 2.3 acres, but I'm fine with it. I just I don't usually see that R1 with that large a parcel. So that was my only confusion or question. But
Yeah, there were two reasons for that. One was, and I asked the client about that, and they said that's just what it was before it went to manufacturing. And the engineer also suggested, hey, if somebody down the line wants to subdivide R1, you might be able to do it, RFR80 you can't. Oh, okay, fine, so we put it on R1.
right, perfect.
Makes
Thank you.
sense.
Yes.
The reason I was opposed to it, and that was before I had any information, is I thought that it was going to R1 because she wanted to subdivide it into 2 or 3 lots. That's what I thought she wanted to do. And as soon as I saw this, and it's not. It's just one lot. It's going to remain one lot. And she wants our, I thought about it too. She asked for R1, and that's fine.
Great.
And all of these items that need to be waived, we would do it as part of our motion at the next meeting for decision time. We'd make these all part of the record.
Great, terrific.
All right, anything else for,
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
well, actually, I gotta get public comment.
Oh, sorry.
Anyone out there wishing to be heard on this particular hearing, this rezone? Okay? Have at it, Barbara.
Vinny should have come, it would have been a short meeting for him.
Vinny is officially retired
Officially?
in Florida.
Really?
Yes. He is
That's the only way you
officially
can retire to leave.
All right, I make a motion to close the hearing and set a date for a decision.
When do you think we can do it, Lisa?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Would you give a message to Joyce and let her know,
Yes.
many of us are familiar with Nathan and his long history of taxpayer concerns about the budget. I think when he attended his first town financial meeting, it was the year I was born. But I just wanted her to know that I deeply respected her father, and he was an important figure in Hopkinton for decades. So I just wanted her to know that.
I will definitely give that to her.
Okay.
She'll love to hear it.
Good.
So your next regularly scheduled meeting was Tuesday, the 19th, so if you wanted to schedule that.
Yours, for me, what do you say? Thanks. Sound good, Kelly?
Sounds terrific.
It's a Tuesday because of Monday holiday.
Okay.
Okay. I guess that concludes that one. Thanks, Kelly.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, the consent agenda. Approved special town council meeting minutes of January 14th, 2019. Approved town council minutes of January 22nd, 2019. Approved January 7th, 2019 executive session minutes. Set February 19th, 2019 as a hearing date for a special event permit filed by Ashaway Sportsman's Club for the annual Huck Finn Day. Set February 19th, 2019 as a hearing date for a Class F liquor license filed by Langworthy Public Library. Approved refunds resulting from the 2018 abatement of the motor vehicle tax.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, first public forum. Anyone wishes to be heard? Candace tomorrow.
Just a side note, my wife and I, the first piece of property we bought was on Diamond Hill Estates from Nathan Kay. And I can remember to this day walking in the back to his little lab, and I could see teeth all over the place. And I said to my wife, I don't know about this place. We want to own this property. I agree with Sylvia, one of the nicest people you could ever meet. He really was. I just have three quick points tonight. The first one was on Stubbtown Road dump. Back in September, I spoke to Jim Lanfear concerning that piece of property, basically to look for revenue for the town. I had sent some contact information to the town council on October 24th. I tried to get that discussion on the agenda for the 20th. I spoke to Frank about it when it wasn't on the agenda, and he explained to me about having a workshop for that project, which I thought was a good idea. Friday, I was talking with Jim, and Jim mentioned to me about the progress on the Stubbtown Road dump. I'm not sure who initiated that. I appreciate it. I've known Jim since this past summer. He's excellent at his job, and he will see that project through, and hopefully we'll get revenue from that dormant piece of property that's there. The next point I wanted to talk about was the application process for solar. I know people realize that you fill out the application, the planning board gets involved, the planning department, it goes to the town council, you schedule the hearings, you have the paid witnesses. We've all gone through that. With Woodville Alton, I attended the second meeting, so I don't know how many were prior to that, which was on July 2nd. The vote was on October 9th. Just that meeting, it was over 3 months for that process before we voted. And there's a reason why I'm talking about this process. I was not involved with 310 Main Street, but a few weeks back I wanted to do some research to get up to speed on that project. And I checked with the town clerk and I checked with Jim, to see who the developer was, what the company was involved with that. I was shocked when I read that because I knew from my research from Woodville, Alton, that the same developer had his LLC revoked by the Secretary of State's office. My point is, this project went through all of those steps, all the time that you folks spend, all the time that Jim and the town clerk spends on that, and it's approved on a revoked LLC. And I only found that out because I was looking at Woodville Alton. On the Woodville Alton project, the same developer submitted his application here at the town clerk's office. The following day is when his LLC became active. So it seems like there's no regard for the correct procedure. I know some people may say, why do we have to check out this information for the developer? As you're aware, there's a pending court case right now, and that's one of the key points in that court case is that how could the Hopkinton Town Council approve a project on an LLC that's not valid? My suggestion is to spend 5 or 10 minutes on the Secretary of State's website to review that information. That's where I found out, just looking at that website. The other point I want to make on this, I was speaking with Luther about this, and he had a good idea. Maybe it's just a simple one question added to the application. Words to this effect. Is the LLC or developer's company listed on this application active? If he checks off yes, I would still verify it to make sure it is an active LLC. There's 12 projects proposed, and I believe all 12 right now should be checked before everyone spends a lot of time and money going through this whole process. The last point I wanted to mention was the voting process. The town council goes through the entire process and then they vote. They give their reasons for their vote. I've been involved in 2 projects. This last one was so much different than the first one I was involved in. I had 10 or 15 points originally on here I was going to talk about. I'm not going to do that tonight. We've gone through that. We've rehashed it. What's disturbing to me is it's getting to the point where it's embarrassing, I believe, to town council, the town of Hopkinton, when you read the letters to the editor where people are going back and forth against each other, and it's one council person may say this, a resident may come back and say something else. One of the comments I just read recently was, accept the vote and accept the voices of the majority of your constituents. I think we're much better that we don't have to go back and forth in the newspaper to get our point across. When I was at Jim's office on Friday, I happened to bump into John Orlandi, and Jim can tell you, we sat down for probably a half hour, and we had a very nice conversation. And John said to me, Joe, you know what's nice about this? You and I can sit down and talk about it. We can talk about our differences of opinions, and at the end of the day, respect each other. And I think that's what this is about. There has to be respect in this whole process. So that's basically what I wanted to say about this. I think we need to move on. We're much better for all this process. And again, I thank everyone that was involved with the town, the ordinance. And I think part of the delay with the Stubbtown Road dump was because we spent so much time on solar projects and the solar ordinance that, 5 months, I spoke to this developer twice. It's Newport Solar Renewable. Eon is his name, Walsh, I believe is his last name. As I said, I did send an email to the former town council. He had no concerns about the 3-phase power. It's 9/10 of a mile from that location. And I'm glad that Jim's working on it because I'm sure that we'll see some progress with that.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else? Public forum? Okay, Bill McGarry, Town Manager Report.
Thank you. During January, Recreation Director Mary Sawyer and I prepared a request for proposal, an RFP for the installation of an epoxy floor in the Crandall House Recreational Activity Center. It's going to be partially funded through a $6,400 Rhode Island Department of Elderly Affairs grant, and the advertisement was posted on February 3rd in the Westerly Sun, so that project's moving forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Any questions for Bill, folks? Okay, thank you. New business number 1, discuss, consider, and vote on sending letters to the Hopkinton members of the Charahoe School Committee, asking them to attend the next meeting on February 19th of this month. Mr. Hurst requested this, and you have the floor, Scott.
I thank you for putting it on the agenda. I think it's appropriate that the town council meet with the Hopkinton members of the school committee to talk over Charahoe's impact on the budget and other issues. And I will find my letter. I did craft a letter asking for under the president's I gotta find the thing.
The last page.
And I'll read it. It's very short, but I did it with the belief that members of the council could add anything to it. This is the reality. Before I read the letter, we have 5 members of the town council. We have 4 members from Hopkinton on the school committee. That's 9 people. So the school budget impacts member towns differently. And as you know, the Charahoe budget impacts the town of Hopkinton so much that we're gaining, the Charahoe school budget is taking a number, much more of our town taxes in the proposed budget. That impacts not only the taxpayers who are paying the taxes, but also town government itself, whether it's police and public works and other agencies of town government. One of my issues through the years has been an outside management study that would identify the spending of the school department from an outside view, somebody that knows something about running schools can make a recommendation. I know, talked to the council president, and I look forward to working with him on some school issues, and we have communicated about that. Obviously, I don't want to violate the open meetings law, so, and another thing is we can't, talking about the open meetings law, we cannot meet as a body with, as a town council with a majority because we'd be in violation of open meeting. I think it's important to meet with the school committee members, the budget hearing, the Charahoe budgets in March and the actual votes in April. And I'm going to read the letter, and I look for input, but I do think it's important that we sit down and talk to the members, the 4 members of the school committee from Hopkinton, who are elected by the same people we are, who in Charahoe impacts our town taxes, just like general government does. But I'll read it, and any input would be appreciated. Dear, to better open communication between the Hopkinton Town Council and the Charahoe School Committee members from Hopkinton, you are respectfully requested to attend our regular town council meeting on Tuesday, February 19, 2019 at the Hopkinton Town Hall. Among the items to be discussed will be the 2019-20 school budget, outside management study, forensic audit, and that's something that Frank has expressed an interest to me about. Working to get the state support of education better financially, and these other things from town council members, as well as any items you wish to put on the agenda for our discussion that night. Please contact the town clerk's office of any matters that you would like us to discuss. In closing, I trust we can work together, even though we may not be in agreement on issues, at least talk with each other. We are mindful you are elected officials like we are. Respectfully, us, Frank T. Landolfi, President, Hopkinton Town Council. I think that is conciliatory, respects their office in their role, respects their option to bring forward any ideas that they wish to discuss with us, and maybe it could be improved a little bit, but I've tried to be as brief as I could, and I'd be interested in any other items you want to talk about, but if you really have a big meeting, a lot of stuff doesn't really get taken care of. And we do have a Hopkinton perspective, because there's a financial perspective with the Cherry budget in regard to Hopkinton, and our ability to address things. And also, I would think that when you have a budget which is currently approaching $60 million, which the Cherry budget is, you'd want to, it would be very helpful to have an outside management study, for example, at least discuss it, about looking at ways to save money. And being open-minded to that, because there's no way we can compel the school department or the school district to follow those recommendations, but it's something that all the people, town council members, and school committee members, administration, can look at with some suggestions. From somebody that has some credentials, somebody that doesn't have a dog in the fight, if you will, and everybody can look at the recommendation. But anyways, try to be proactive instead of going out and taking cheap shots against the school department. But I recognize that we're really impacting town government significantly when it's just a matter of points that we go in tax dollars from what we spend on the town versus the school department. And the school department is going up in the amount of tax dollars that we'll be spending versus general government, which is police, public works, recreation, etc. And I'm just interested in any input anybody has. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. I'll just be happy if they show up.
I think part of that might be a problem. I think February 19th is a school board meeting at Cherry. That's why I was trying to take my calendar out.
19th is the President's Day holiday, and is the 19th on Tuesday?
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
It's the 12th, Barbara, the next school committee.
the next school committee is the 12th,
Oh, okay.
but he's asking for a meeting on the 19th.
Who's he?
Scott is
Oh,
asking
no.
for a meeting on the 19th.
Okay. So what?
Oh, okay.
Is that a problem?
No, I guess not. I guess not. 12th is it. But I think it's a good idea to bring our own members in front of the council and having a discussion about that.
You'll have some show, for sure.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
that's, I
definitely
think
something
that's
will
a
show.
value. Yeah. I think
No,
it's a
I
value.
believe Lisa will be here, and I believe George will be here.
I know
Without a
George
doubt.
will be here.
Yeah.
That's what we knew.
So on that evening's agenda so far, you have 2 hearings. You have, that shouldn't take very long, the one for the Hopkinton Day and then the Class F liquor license. Those will be beginning at 7 p.m. Then you have a decision scheduled that evening for the Luzzy matter, and that is going to be listed under old business. At this point, I don't know what else is on the agenda. Are you thinking of having them in earlier or during the normal, under new business?
How about we suggest 7:30? That's reasonable. No, I mean 7:30 for them, and then they don't have to sit here for the extra half hour or do some other things.
It's fine.
The only thing I'm concerned about is, does any other member of the council have any ideas for agenda items before we approve this letter?
I think we can bring them up at the time.
And also if it's around school and charitable issues and education and financing and budget, it'll cover
We
everything.
can make it all-inclusive as best we can through the solicitor's office.
Okay,
Can I ask one question?
What?
I think, trying to remember, when the school committee submits its budget,
It's final budget.
yes, that's sort of like
It's
sometime in March, right?
Well,
March 15th, I think.
All right, so they're coming on February 19th, and you want to talk about an outside management study. That outside management study will not affect this budget. You can't get somebody, you can't hire anybody.
We can still talk to them.
Oh, yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
it's not going to happen.
It was in the
This
budget
cycle.
once and they got rid of it, so.
Yeah, but I think the most
Just to
important,
kind of put them on notice, I think a lot.
I think the other time to bring it up, though, too, is March 5th, because that's going to be the annual meeting. So I think it's good to bring it up now, that would be fine, but I think the other time you can talk to the school committee with all 3 towns there will be on March 5th, because that's the annual. So I would suggest thinking about doing both of that, Scott.
I think the issue is that, first of all, the school committee has the power to move that budget line items around. In addition to that, even after they take the input on March 5th, that's not that final budget that goes to the voters in April. So if they're so inclined, not that they're necessarily going over, they can still put in a line item for the municipal study if they were so inclined. And as I know you was there when I asked the question, Sharon, or Councilor Davis, that I said, how many line item transfers did you do? And they said, man, they didn't have a number. I'm sure you remember when I asked that question. So I'm just trying to be proactive, and if you have anything else you want to...
If you don't start now, you won't. So it's better to start now.
Sure.
And
And it's also recognizing that a forensic audit can be $100,000. It's a lot of money.
I know, but we can talk about that, something that the council president had mentioned to me, and I look forward to...
Depends on how big the budget is.
I look forward to working with the council president. We've talked about co-authoring a letter to the paper about the capital budget. We'll see what happens. I look forward to meeting with him. Obviously, I'm very conscious I don't want to violate the open meetings law, but we obviously got to say something even if we're left in the dust. But I think we have a responsibility to this town to say something. One of the things I would like to say that the town of Hopkinton, the town government, not only the taxpayers who pay the bill, it impacts all things that we want to do in this town, the town of Hopkinton, whether it be the police, public works, recreation, or any other town function, whether it be a clerk or some type of equipment and everything. And the school department has a lot of money to move around to do certain things, but the town does not have the luxury that the school department has because they get so much money to do things. And I think the statistics of where we're going from this year to next year, percent of our town tax dollars, it's going to increase for the schools and it's going to decrease for the general government of the town. And the only other thing I have to say is, does anybody have anything to add to this letter? Otherwise, I make a motion to send it.
I would just like to have it rewritten. Just make it a simpler letter.
Okay, I make a motion that the council president be directed to send a letter to the 4 Hopkins members of the school committee at the wording at his discretion.
Second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Can I just make a point? I went to that budget meeting, and there were 3 people there. I'd never been before, I've never been to the town budget meeting. And it's the point of knowing about the information, and knowing about the meetings. Not a lot of residents go online and print a calendar. I know it's at the police department, I know it's here. Is there any way, we have a new IT person now, is there any way maybe that residents that wish to do it could sign up like an email list so this information can get out to the people to attend? But Frank, you had mentioned the number, and I forgot how many people showed up last year at the town's budget. Half a dozen, I think you said, if that. I'd like to find a way where we can get more residents aware of these very important meetings. And I know we talked about a robocall, but then there's issues with that. And you just wonder with today's technology if email is the best way to get that message out.
Okay, we'll try and figure it out. Thanks, Joe.
Scott mentioned something a couple of times on this topic, and if 3 people showed up at the school committee, if 3 town councilors showed up at the school committee meeting and they didn't plan it, they're not discussing amongst each other, they're there to talk to the school committee about some issues, that's not a violation of the open meetings law, correct? They just show up somewhere, we didn't plan it, we're not
Probably
huddled
not.
together.
As long as they don't huddle together, work as a team.
Right, okay, all right, thank you.
Even if everything we say is the same.
Even if everything's the same, yeah.
We all have the same.
It could be finances.
Which it all-
It is
We
a
all got
concern
through it
because
also.
somebody could nail you with open meetings, but You know, those of us that are on a board have to be always mindful of perception or possibility that could be a violation. And I think it's important for us to, even if this doesn't go anywhere from a practical point of view, I think it's important that we take the initiative to do that. And that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Scott. We have a motion made and seconded, I think everyone voted, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll craft the letter and send everyone a copy of it once I kind of fine tune it, I guess. Thank you. Scott, last public forum, anyone out there? Motion to adjourn? Okay, and motion to adjourn?
Mr. President, I make a motion that the Hopkinton Town Council adjourn this evening in honor of the New England Patriots for winning the Super Bowl yesterday.
What a hard game.
Motion made and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Not a lot of Patriots.